The story begins in the Chinese city Tianfeng at the 5th Academy. Just like every other day in the academy, students in the classroom were complaining and bickering about their talent, skills, and awakening, whereas our protagonist was thinking about his financial condition. Our protagonist is Zhong Ji. He traversed from Earth to this place 10 years ago, and his name was given by his adoptive parents in this world. The Zhong couple always treated him like their own child, and his sister was happy to finally have a brother. When monsters appeared in this world 20 years ago, they spawned at random places and started killing and destroying everything they could find in front of them. As humans were useless against them, Zhong lost his parents in the tragedy and ran away with his little sister, as she was the only person left in the family. As the monsters grew more ruthless every day, the humans started to fight back against the monsters, and all of them charged into the gate to the demon territory, where they discovered that if they become stronger in this place, they will also become stronger in the real world. To fight back against the ungodly creatures, all countries gathered strong elites who were against the monsters, creating an international organization. They divided the hunter ranks into 5 groups, starting from 1 to 5, along with 7 ranks of human awakened talent. The higher, the better. Like those who awaken A-rank talent, our protagonist Zhong was preparing for his A-rank talent exam to fit in the category. As it was his 18th birthday the same day, his sister tried to prepare food for him, but it gets burned. His sister bids farewell to her brother as she leaves home and advises him to be safe in the territory. Just upon entering the demon territory, he is welcomed by the guide fairy, and it is suggested that he set his name and custom in demon territory. He decides to follow the guide and gets his pre-planned outfit. He expected his rank to be A before starting, but the result gets him and the fairy both confused as the ball finishes its detection. He has awakened triple S rank instead of A, which is the highest of all the 7 ranks. As expected, no one has ever awakened the triple S rank, and it only existed in legends until today. As with just S-rank talent, anyone could directly enter a famous academy. The skill is way too amazing, and he can summon any monster right away after killing it. He thinks of building an entire monster army, but gets upset after checking out the mental spirit, as it is just 1 level higher than normal people. Zhong finally enters the demon territory and meets the demon territory administrators, who are calling for newbies, as they have yet to explain the demon territory knowledge to them. Zhong sees a lot of people who are going to enter the demon territory for the first time, and he can already see the mixed emotions in the crowd. Some of them are bragging about their rank, and some of them are already devastated about being ranked low. The weapon distribution gets started, as they are all warned that they will meet real death when they die in the territory. Not only the monsters are the enemies, but also the humans entering the territory with them, so they can trust no one. Everyone has to register their talent, skill, rank, and then pick a weapon. So our protagonist does the unexpected by registering himself as a D rank, just to be safe from the crowd. Zhong decides to take a bow, as he can better take care of his safety as he gets advised by the altar to be cautious in the territory. After checking out everyone in the line, the administrators find that only 3 of the people had awakened above A rank. Zhong decides to practice his arrow skills, and it is harder than he expected, but he continues to do so, as the real combat won't let him have so much room for failure. After practicing for a while, his proficiency gets higher, and he decides to head into the real mission. The territory is divided into various levels, and each of them carried various monsters with different skill types. Zhong decides to help the newbies upon entering by distracting their enemies and finishing them off using his brain. Finishing off the lava turtle granted him a low-rank magic soul, and he finally summons his first beast. Somewhere in the territory, some newbies are overwhelmed by a violent rabbit, so Zhong decided to help them while he arrives riding his lava turtle. They couldn't understand why the beast wasn't attacking him, and one of them tries his luck to tame the violent rabbit. The guy instantly gets punched by the rabbit, but one of them was able to slice off its flesh, dealing critical damage. The rabbit gets into his berserk state, and the situation becomes worse as 2 other rabbits join the first one. Zhong was watching the grassland sunset when he sees the same group of guys running his way as they are chased by violent rabbits. Zhong wasn't thinking much of the situation and is shocked as he was about to get punched by one of the rabbits. He manages to dodge the attack as he commands his turtle to use its tail against them. Zhong's attack was dealing lower damage to the rabbits as his turtle was getting beaten up by the rabbits due to its slow speed. His turtle decides to fight back and Zhang was supporting his companion by dealing extra damage by shooting arrows at them. The situation gets way worse, and he commands his turtle to return, but instead, it changes its form by getting leveled up. His companion deals its final blow, which finishes off the remaining enemy. Now Zhang can summon 4 beasts in total, and in that same moment, he gets an important message from the class message group, calling him to gather at the altar. It seems that the administrators have invited an elite named Lu Ye Ying, as defeating the first floor's boss Dark Shadow Wolf will be too much for the newbies. The crowd starts chatting with each other about her beauty and abilities as she warns everyone and commands them to follow the order. Moonshadow has invited Zhang to join the team, but as all of her key information is hidden, he wonders if she is stronger than his summoned beasts. Zhang decides to hide his real combat ability after moving into the demon territory along with all the newbies and Moonshadow, as it will only make the matter complex. Monsters start appearing one by one, and one hit from her takes down multiple monsters at the same time. The whole crowd, including Zhang, seems astonished, but she commands them all to follow and moves on. Zhang decides not to meddle in the business of her killing the boss wolf. Finally, the whole group faces the gate, through which a dark shadow wolf will appear soon. Moonshadow instructs them not to get separated from her and not to attack it on their own, since it can cause a nuisance. The wolf finally arrives at the scene, and the thick fog makes it harder to see in the dark. The group is confused as they can see the wolf but not Moonshadow. She dodges the very first attack made by the wolf and keeps standing. She then deals the first and final blow to the wolf, which ends up killing it. Zhang was able to see the name of the skill that was used by Moonshadow. Everyone in the group thanks Moonshadow for her help, and she recommends all of them quickly pass the gate as the boss will respawn 1 hour later. Just when she was about to leave, Moonshadow notices the sign of a new boss spawning behind her. It hasn't even been an hour, and the aura gets her confused, as an elite rank Dark Shadow Wolf appears in front of her. Moonshadow gets frustrated as she has to protect the group of newbies behind her, so she instructs them to run away from the scene. Everyone started running away from the scene according to her instruction, and Zhang was wondering if she can really do it or not after all, as this is an elite boss. Moonshadow was managing the courage to defeat the boss, but she has to let those newbies escape first, and in the same moment the elite wolf attacks her, but she was able to dodge it. She deals critical damage in the counterattack, but it wasn't enough for it to get its HP reduced. The wolf fights back at full speed, which ends up injuring Moonshadow, and she starts bleeding badly. She was fully frustrated but wasn't ready to admit the defeat. While going away, Zhang gets deep into thought of subduing the monster and chooses not to listen to the guy behind him, as he warned him not to go back. Meanwhile, Moonshadow was badly wounded, and the wolf still had a great amount of HP on him. She couldn't use her special skill as she was bleeding too much, and the wolf deals its final blow to her. Just when the wolf was about to attack her again, Zhang pierces the wolf with his arrows and decides to distract it. Moonshadow was trying to warn him, as he was one of the freshmen, but they disappear after a while, running away. The situation got worse for Zhang, as the elite boss still had half of its HP left, and he thinks of his sister's illness since he must survive for her. Just when he was about to get jumped by the boss, he decides to summon his beast to protect himself. Moonshadow was in pain and agony since she had left a newbie with an elite beast that can finish him off quickly. She thinks of him hanging in there for a while, as she started healing herself by bandaging and drinking HP potions. Suddenly, the whole squad arrives at the scene, and the princess uses her green blessing to heal Moonshadow. They instantly get shocked, learning that a newbie has lured the elite wolf somewhere into the forest. They decide to go on looking for Zhang right away. Meanwhile, Zhang has summoned his beasts, and they start attacking the wolf, encircling it. Everything was going fine until the elite wolf decided to fight back at all the beasts at once. The damage was way too high and risky for the beasts, and Zhang decides to cover them from his location. One of the violent rabbits gets leveled up, but 2 of them die instantly in the attack. The situation was getting worse, but the final blow from the lava turtle ends up finishing the elite wolf. The death of the elite wolf granted Zhang some medium-rank magic soul orb, a necklace, and a wolf bone dagger. He decides to sell the knife as he needs to save money to pay for his little sister's medical fees. Zhang has lost 2 of the summoned beasts, but got his first elite-ranked beast to summon on the very first trip to the demon territory. He decides to return as it was getting late, and the squad of Moonshadow was still looking for him. While they thought that Zhang has sacrificed his life to save others, Moonshadow states that she will meet Lu Wei to have a conversation with him about his dead student, as she blames himself for his death. At home, Jong trades his loot for a strength magic soul orb and decides to test it out the next day at school, as the strength gained in the territory reflects in real life as well. The next day in the morning, the day goes as usual, and his sister makes him home-cooked food, even though he insisted that she didn't need to cook. He thinks about telling his sister the truth about his awakening, but decides not to, as she can worry. She thinks that he has got a bad talent and advises him to get a job in the city instead, as she wanted to take care of the rent, but he advises her to focus only on her studies, since he is taking care of everything else. Just when Jong was withdrawing the money by using his phone, as it was enough for his sister's artificial kidney, the teacher ordered everyone to quiet down, as Lu Ye-ying came to the class for some reason. She was looking for the person that helped her yesterday, but Jong decides not to expose himself, and they believe that the person isn't in the class. Nobody in the class could guess who the person is except for one guy. He invites Jong to fight together in demon territory, as he was bringing 2 girls with him, but Jong rejects it. The guy calls himself the Handsome Fatty, and he could guess Jong's concern about his sister, but he advises him to find him anyways. Just when Jong was mopping the gymnasium floor and thinking about leaving work when he sells more magic soul orbs in the future, some people were praising someone named Jiang Qing for his strength, as he is the second strongest compared to Lu Ye-ying. Jong could also see a great amount of change in his strength and decided to go to the demon territory again. He grows more concerned about his sister as she was spending more time outside the house. After reaching the territory, Jong sees that the summon team has 7 slots left, and decides not to head to the second floor until he gets 10 summon beasts. He heads on with his elite wolf with the hope of getting more lava turtles. In 1 hour, he manages to gather everything that he wanted and decided to move to the second floor, but he could guess that something was wrong when he noticed that some kids were running away from something. It seems that Handsome Fatty and his 2 friends were getting chased by some experienced guys who wanted to kidnap them and asked their real-world family members for money, as solving the kidnapping cases of demon territory is hard enough for the police. Also, there is a great chance of hostages being killed, since they can reveal the kidnapper's identity. It seems that Handsome Fatty has lied to get noticed by the girls and dug his own grave. All 3 of them get stuck in the ground as the kidnapper leader uses his muddy swap skill on them. Just when one of the kidnappers was going to use his axe on the guy, Jong used his arrow to stop the man. He even calls the group of kidnappers trash, as they were going to extort someone for their own good. Jong lured the whole group to a place where there was only one entrance so he can teach them a great lesson. Jong tried to warn them, but there was no use, so he used his summoned lava turtles to surround them all. They were thinking of running away, but their plan didn't feel quite good enough after noticing the elite wolf standing in front of them. Just as the kidnapper said, no one will know even if someone gets killed in demon territory, so Jong decides to use it on them. Jong found a lot of important items, including the Berserk Talisman, and met the innocent crew on his way out to the second floor. Handsome Fatty decides to repay Jong for his kindness with 1 million, but Jong avoids it as it can expose his identity. He bids farewell to the crew and moves on to the second floor. Upon reaching the second floor, Jong notices people of different types. Some were complaining about the place as it looked like a cave, and some were looking for recruits. Just like usual, Jong decides to go alone as he checks out the monster guide and realizes that this floor will be quite harder. Jong gets attacked by a poison spider just as he entered, and he instantly summoned his violent rabbits, but they get obliterated by the spider once they get stuck in the spider webs. The poison damage was uncontrollable, but he still managed to beat it after attacking it all at once. Jong was disappointed as he lost a level 2 violent rabbit, and that gained him only 2 low-rank energy soul orbs, but now he can summon a poison spider, which is way better than a violent rabbit and lava turtle. Just when he was thinking of monsters, he gets sneak attacked by 2 bloodthirsty bats, but gets saved as his summoning speed has increased. He summoned all the monsters he had, but they were useless, as his enemies were flying and they can recover by leeching blood. Jong was able to win the fight back as he used his poison spider, and the reason it was successful is that the poison damage counters bloodthirsty bats' suck blood damage, but the damage was already done since he had already lost a few of his summon beasts. Just when he was about to move on to the boss battle, he noticed a big ruckus created by some guys as they were trying to make money off of the boss battle. Some of the expert guys were asking for 10 energy soul orbs per boss fight to the incoming newbies in the area, and it was unfair. None of the newbies liked the idea as it was too much for them. When the last slot was left, Jong decided to come in. He then claimed to be rich to the main guy and promised him 10 gold bars as a replacement for 10 energy soul orbs once he gets floor 3's key. The guy allows Jong to enter, but warns him not to be clever and betray him as he will face the consequences. The money-grubbing crew took Jong to their boss. The boss's name is Money-Earning Superhero, and he has a rating of a proficient boxer. The exhibition then starts. The proficiency tag alone proved that the guy will not be weak at all. They all reached the Devour Heaven frog, but the size of it only made their skin crawl. The leader warned his crew not to get close as he was going to start, and one single hit from the man ate up 1/3 of the HP of the boss. The boss was fighting back, but it was of no use at all as the leader kept beating it up, and Jong was ready to give the final hit so he can gain one more beast on his list. The arrow from his bow caught the eye of the frog, and it made the leader fall from his position. The crew was going to meddle in the fight, but the leader orders them not to, as he wanted to see the Snatcher get burned by the boss. All the guys around Jong start mocking him, as they felt like he wanted to take all the rewards and snatch a boss, risking his life. They also claimed that he isn't going to leave the place safely anyways, even after finishing off the boss, as he will have to face them all. Jong wasn't left with anything other than summoning his beasts, as he was getting attacked by the boss constantly. Realizing that he can summon beasts, the whole crowd, including the leader, gets astonished, as they have never seen any talent skill like that before. With all the help of the summoned beasts and the power of his own arrows, Jong was able to overpower the boss and managed to finish it finally. The whole crowd was shocked to see him finishing the boss, and just when Jong was about to grab the dropped items, the guys gather around him with their leader. They threaten Jong and tell him to hand over everything that he has collected from the boss, otherwise he will face consequences. Jong started thinking about what to do at that moment, and the leader started to show the demonstration of his power after calling Jong useless. Just with one move of a fire fist, the leader squashed the bloodthirsty bat under his feet on the ground. The matter was getting intense when the leader called him trash again, saying that Jong's mobs are useless in front of a true expert. Just when Jong thought of killing the guys, including the leader, one of the Demon Territory Management Bureau's disciple inspectors arrives at the scene and forbids them both from doing anything hasty. Jong realizes that he doesn't need to fight with the guys in front of him anymore, and at the same time, the guys get tense as they encourage him to finish off both the officer and Jong. The officer reveals that he was collecting evidence and he will submit them to his superior, so he suggests they surrender at the Demon Territory Management Bureau. The leader listened to his men and surrounded both Jong and the officer with his men. The officer claims that he will protect Jong, and he praises him for his talent and skill as he has a bright future. He stated that he will introduce Jong to his superior and start fighting the crowd with his ice ray. Meanwhile, the leader of the crowd tells him not to be scared, as the officer's talent has a 60-second cooldown, since he and his men will be able to kill him in that time. But it seems that the officer has great agility and fighting skills, as he graduated from Tuan Martial University. He then again warns the leader and his men to surrender for the final time before his companions arrive. Suddenly, his man named Lao Sund uses some kind of magic on his leader, and he fiercely charges the officer and Jong both. The situation instantly changes when the people present there notice that Jong has an elite monster. But not only that, he now also has the ability to summon the Devour Heaven frog boss he defeated just some time ago. The Devour Heaven frog was again getting obliterated by the boxer, and only less than half HP was left of it. Jong was able to guess that the boxer first wanted to finish off the frog, and then later deal with the Dark Shadow Wolf, since he doesn't want to get ambushed in the middle. The boxer's men were bragging about their leader's achievements, and he truly was strong, but Jong still had something powerful up his sleeves. He used the Berserk Talisman on the elite wolf, which was his last hope against the men in front of him. Since the Berserk state is almost ungodly, the boxer was confused about why the wolf went berserk, as he didn't even attack it even once. He knew that he was no match against a Berserk boss like that, and he decided to run away from the scene. But Jong wasn't about to let him go just like that. He tried his best to behave well with these guys, but not anymore. The elite Berserk Wolf had already started his actions. It started attacking the leader like a hurricane and was tearing him apart piece by piece. The boxer had nothing to do other than withstand the attack, as he was getting clawed apart by the elite wolf. His knees buckled as he knelt down, finally weakened, and then he realized the true power of Jong. Make Money Superhero finally vanished away, as he was defeated at the hands of Jong, and then his men started running for their lives. but their journey met an end as the elite wolf started gaining and clawing at them. The officer realized that the power and talent skill that Zhang carried are heavy and powerful. He was thinking to himself that someone like him should be controlled by the country, and at that exact moment, his companions arrived, and he promised to capture the men that were running away from the scene. Just as Zhang had guessed, Make Money Superhero had a lot of valuable loot on him, but not only that, he also had an invitation letter to the Death Territory with the quality of a C rank. Zhang couldn't find out any clue about it because he had never heard of it in his whole life, and decided to absorb all the high-rank energy magic souls that he got from him. The officer asked Zhang about joining the Demon Territory Management Bureau and working for the country, but Zhang states that for now he has no plans on doing anything like that. He then hands Zhang his contact number in case he changes his mind. Just before Zhang was about to leave that place, the officer advises him to remember that he has the blood of Da Xia, and no matter how strong he gets in the future, he shouldn't do anything that will harm the country and its citizens. Zhang tells him not to worry, as he is also a citizen of Da Xia. Zhang reaches floor 3 and realizes that the number of people on this floor is much less than any of the previous floors. As the power of the monster grows in huge length between each level, he knows that it's better not to risk it. He notices that this floor only has 2 types of goblin monsters, nothing else. As it was already getting late, Zhang decides to go back home. He noticed that the house is dark and his sister hasn't arrived home yet. Just when he was about to make a call to Zhang Feng's house, he noticed a missed call on his phone. Zhang Feng's brother received the call and instructed him to reach the Yunting Club's dance hall immediately, as something has happened to Zhang Feng. Zhang was astonished and wondering about what his sister was doing in the city's most luxurious dance hall. Just when he was approaching the building, 2 men appeared in front of him, forbidding him to enter due to the dress code. He could guess that his little sister came to this place to work, and this is the method she mentioned. He was furious about the fact that someone could harm his little sister, so he didn't care who was standing in front of him and ran straight to the main door, knocking the guards out of his way. It seems that the situation occurred when his little sister didn't listen to a group of VIPs when they asked her to accompany someone named Young Master Chen for drinks. One of the men handed her a credit card that had 10,000 on it in order to make up her mind. When her friend Zhang Feng wanted to cover for her, the matter only got worse and not better. Suddenly, Zhang arrived at the scene, warning the men not to touch his little sister. The men seemed to be from the Tianjing organization, an organization that hired countless Demon Territory elites. Zhang picked up the card and threw it at Wu Tiancheng's face, but the young master caught it with great speed. Wu Tiancheng ordered his men to cripple Zhang, but Sister Zhang arrived in the middle of the fight to make it stop. She chose to protect the people of her city and blamed it on Wu Tiancheng, as he is a bully, and advises him to go back to Jianbei. When the audience in the club supported Sister Zhang, Wu Tiancheng called them idiots, as they are the ones handling matters in the territory. When he promised to take away Zhang's sister with him, Sister Zhang was about to knock him out, but she gets attacked by the young master, who is the only S-rank talent elite in his city. Wu Tiancheng's men try to grab Zhang's sister again, so he knocked the man out with his leg. Zhang's speed surprised the young master, as he is much faster than him. Zhang and Chen Feng then both get introduced to each other. In the next scene, Chen Feng calls himself lucky and invites Zhang to have a spar with him. Just when Zhang rejected his proposal, Cheng uses a bottle to provoke Zhang so he can discover the rate of his speed and make him join the spar at the same time. It seems that he doesn't want to let Zhang leave with his sister without his permission, and Sister Zhang advises him to be careful. Zhang commands his sister to go stand at one side so he can handle his opponent. Zhang Feng seems to be a clever fellow. He hid his true strength all this time, and each of his punches is at least 1,000 kilograms. Zhang is faster than his opponent, so he decides to use it to his advantage, and with that speed he was able to hit Zhang. Zhang started overcoming his opponent with his ferocious agility, and Cheng couldn't even see him for once. Wu Tiancheng was regretting his choice of coming to the club, as he never thought someone in this city might be able to challenge them. Zhang's sister and her friends started cheering for her brother, as they never believed he would be this powerful. The spar gets devastating for Cheng, as he couldn't even move or lift his arm anymore. The organization and Cheng decide to leave it for today, as they were defeated, but he promised to come back after 3 months of learning and training. It seems that they're going to be at the same university, and Zhang uses the opportunity to mock Cheng. The bickering between the two of them finally ends with Jong challenging Chung at the university. At that point, the audience was also supporting Jong as he was able to keep the respect of his own city and defeat his opponent. Just when Jong was about to leave the club with his sister, John praised him for his actions and invited him to have a chat with her upstairs. He listened to his sister and went upstairs with her. Sister John gifted him a check containing $500,000 of money for winning on behalf of the city. At first, Jong was reluctant to accept the money as he had no reason to take it. But then Sister John explained her situation regarding the opposition organization as they were making trouble for her club. Jong finally accepts the money as a payment to help with any kind of future trouble that is related to Chongfeng. Jong and his sister then proceed to go home as they had nothing else left to do. While walking back home, Jong advises his sister to never work at the club ever again. She then admits that she was wrong, but also states that the pay is considerably higher than anywhere else. He presses the matter again, saying that the higher pay doesn't matter, and she listens to him. Jong's sister praises him for his fighting skills, as he was looking stunning while fighting with his opponent Jong today. But he insists on hurrying up as she needs to get some sleep to attend school the next day. The next day in school, handsome Fatty comes crying and running to Jong as he got emotional thinking about yesterday's incident. Fatty says that he was almost kidnapped, and boss Asura saved him from being killed. Jong decides not to reveal his identity and claims that he had to return home as he needs to cook food for his younger sister. But Fatty was only thinking about taking Asura as his master, which made Jong realize that his memory is quite sharp. Suddenly, a popular guy named Jang Hao greets Jong as a classmate and asks if he is the one who had cleaned the marshal room after school the previous day. Jong could guess that he was going to ask about the dynamometer, and it happens just like he thought. He tries to ignore the matter by saying that he didn't notice. He leaves the place, hurrying and claiming that he has something to do. Even though Jong was feeling fortunate that he didn't see him, he has to act more carefully from now on, as it seems that Jang Hao could guess that it was him just by noticing his demeanor. The guy beside Jang called it impossible, as Jong wasn't even in the top 100 in the last exam. But Jang decided to follow through to the end as the national martial exam was going to happen soon. At home, Jong was watching the news, and it seems that a dangerous fugitive has fled to Tianfeng City, and the students are advised to stay indoors at night. All of them are advised to call the police immediately if they encounter anyone suspicious. After watching the news, Jong decided to visit the magic domain and told his sister not to leave the house, as it hasn't been safe outside these days. Jong reaches the 3rd floor of the magic domain once again and thinks of his lost small beasts. He notices that he still has 5 more slots to fill up with beasts. As the goblins were differentiated between 2 ranges, he decides to collect one of each first before deciding which one to add to his team. Suddenly, he hears that some guys were calling for help as they were attacked by a bunch of goblins. Jong noticed that even though the guys were short-range experts, they couldn't even handle a single peltast goblin, and the goblins were looking quite ferocious as well. Jong realizes that it is his moment to shine, so he releases the sky-swallowing toad on the goblins, and it was able to overwhelm them with its firepower. But after releasing the lava turtle, it became an issue, as the goblins were blocking and throwing boulders at the same time. As one of the turtles died, he decided to change the target of his toad to the boulder-throwing goblin. The attack was able to deal great damage to the goblin, but just when he was about to use his elite wolf on it, it started running away at great speed, which left Jong confused. As the boulder-throwing goblin was about to escape from Jong, he summoned his violent rabbit behind it, as it has great speed. On the other hand, he was successful to defeat the shield-carrying goblin with his toad's final hit, and it took him almost 10 minutes. Jong summoned his first goblin beast, and it looks like it has great attributes on it, as he expected of a monster from the 3rd floor. While he was wondering why his violent hair hadn't returned, he suddenly gets a notification on his status bar saying that his monster had died. He notices that an army of goblins is coming his way, as it seems that the pelting goblin had informed his mates. He decides to put his summoned beasts away, as they would only be crushed by the army of goblins, and he reaches the altar where he cannot be harmed by them. It seems that the goblins are not only strong, but also clever, as they cannot be tricked by Jong into getting electrocuted. Jong could guess that these goblins are too cunning, as they run away and also bring a horde of goblins as reinforcements. So the safest approach for him will be to give them no chance of running away. After thinking about it for a while, our guy was about to conclude with an idea. He strategically used his lava turtles on short-range goblins and kept his fire toad and elite wolf for the pelting goblins. The attack strategy was successful, and they couldn't withstand his genius move, and in the end, only 1 goblin was left, When it was about to run again, Zhang used his venom spider to trap it with its web. His whole army of summoned beasts then took a turn in beating it down. Zhang summoned his pelting goblin to test out its stats and the long-range damage. He then goes on forward, looking for more goblins to defeat and recruiting them to his list. In the whole commotion, he had lost a lava turtle, but in the end, he had a total of 7 goblins, 1 venom spider, and 2 bosses. Our protagonist was finally ready to move on to the 3rd floor's boss. The bosses get only harder in upper levels, and it seems that the Goblin King boss on the 3rd floor has many normal goblin underlings scattered around him. Fighting it alone will be hard, and behind him there are people gathering newbies to fight bosses. The expert players seem to take advantage of newbies, as some of them even lose their lives in this kind of arrangement. The guy who was gathering newbies called him, saying that the process is absolutely free, and all of the drops will be his to use as he won't take anything. But Zhang rejects the proposal, saying that he wants to go solo. But everyone started calling him an idiot for that, as he didn't accept the invitation of an expert. Zhang decides to charge from above with his summoned beasts as there were fewer people and enemies. He started winning the fight with his summoned army, clearing the wave one by one, and he got his hands on a bunch of demon soul orbs this time. Then he reaches a tent-like place where the Goblin King was resting, but just upon reaching it, he notices some people shouting from inside the tent, as they have been surrounded by the Goblin King and his army. Zhang recognized the group of people, but didn't see the man wearing a purple cloak who was recruiting them. Zhang understood that the guy didn't really have an S-rank talent, and he brought the newbies into this place intentionally to die, so he can obtain the demon soul orbs and equipment later. Zhang gets noticed by the Goblin King, and he growls at him, ordering his goblin army to attack him at once. He decides to use his Peltast goblins against the king's goblins, so he can attack the boss. Zhang uses his Venom Spider's web attack and instructs his goblins to attack the king at once. But the strength of the king is totally unbelievable and ridiculous, so he decides to use a long-range attack with his Toad and Pelting goblins. The attacks of Toad and Pelting goblins were working fine, but then the Goblin King changes the game by using his double swords to block the attacks. He was mad and furious at Zhang. He doesn't know what he should do other than retreat from the place. Suddenly, someone stabs Zhang with his knife sneakily, and it was the guy that was recruiting newbies for his benefit, as he can always pick up items from the dead recruits. Zhang couldn't believe that he couldn't see the guy's move before getting hit, and the guy didn't know Zhang wouldn't even die after getting a critical hit from him, as his attributes are remarkable. The guy reveals that his talent is stealth, that he can stay invisible as long as he wants, as long as he isn't attacked. Zhang realized that the guy has been doing this for a long time, but his talent is useless while fighting monsters. He only uses it to defeat other beginners. If it wasn't for Zhang, he would have received another batch of demon soul orbs. This time he will go for finishing Zhang, and it wasn't looking good for Zhang at all, as he is summoned by enemies from both sides. His goblins were dying like flies, and he doesn't even have much HP left on him. He then desperately thinks of an idea because he doesn't want to get defeated by a guy like him, so he uses his Venom Spider to get him trapped in the web. The guy thought that he was trying to escape, but it seems that Zhang had the same idea as him, so he decides to summon his beasts back and wait for his fall. But the guy uses his stealth move to get saved from the Goblin King's attack and thinks of getting back on Zhang the next time. But suddenly, Zhang comes back and uses his arrow on him, so the guy's invisibility goes away. The Goblin King is now able to see the guy and proceeds to beat him, but Zhang lets him know that the invisibility isn't going to work anymore, as he can see the web on him. Then Zhang uses more arrows so the guy can't vanish from the sight of the Goblin King. The guy finally dies at the hands of the boss, and Zhang prepares to fight with the boss against his summoned beasts. After the death of that guy, Zhang gets a dozen items, including demon soul orbs and equipment. He also gets a white silk glove which improves the damage with 50 additional power points. But his arrows were still useless on the Goblin King, as they didn't even put a single damage on him, which was quite unexpected for Zhang. The Goblin King started bashing on his summoned goblins like they were nothing, and they kept dying at once. The boss doesn't just have more damage, but the area of effect is also wide as hell. Zhang knew that he has to think of something to change the game, so he dodges the next attack of the boss and uses the Venom Spider to tie his legs to the ground. He also started using long-range attacks with his Fire Toad and Pelting goblins at once to attack from a safe range. After a while, the boss only had 9 HP left on him, so Jong and his summoned army have to hold on for a little longer. After a few minutes, he was finally done finishing off the Goblin King, and his excitement knew no bounds. Then, finally, the entrance to the 4th floor appeared, and Jong couldn't find it before, as it was hidden in the boss's throne. The Goblin King dropped a high-grade demon soul orb, and Jong was happy to summon his Goblin King, as he had to sacrifice a bunch of summoned beasts because of him. So now Jong has a total of 3 bosses right now, including the Elite Wolf, the Sky-Swallowing Toad, and the Goblin King, but only the Elite Wolf among them was going to level up soon. As there were still empty slots in the summoned beast list, he wanted to add 3 Peltast goblins and 2 pelting goblins, but he wanted to go down to the 4th floor first, as the boss was going to regenerate soon. Just as he was about to head to the 4th floor, some guys behind him with the logo of the Magic Domain Administration team surrounded him. One of the guys asked Jong about the victims who joined his team, but he didn't set up any team, so he disagrees with the statement. But the guy insists that they have received a report saying that someone has been going around deceiving others into thinking they were experts and killing beginners in here. He has also added that within a year, 3 cases were opened, and hundreds of people died in the same way. One of the girl team members of the inspection team again threatened him to drop his weapons and surrender to them as he cannot escape. She added that if he tries to resist the arrest, he will face grave consequences. She then said that they have already set up a trap at the entrance to the 4th floor, so trying to escape will not be a reliable option. Jong notices that there are dozens of them from the same apartment, with the same outfits. As they do not seem to be ordinary fighters, Jong decides not to have a fight with them as the odds will be against him. So, he decides to surrender to the inspectors from the Magic Domain Administration team. Suddenly, someone shouts out saying that Jong isn't the perpetrator. Jong sees that it's the same guy from the 2nd floor incident who was saved by him that day. When the guy comes in front of them, all of the inspectors from the team started calling him the section chief. Jong asks the guy about his promotion, and he explains that Jong is the one who made it true, as he is the one who had defeated everyone that day. The higher-ups were happy to see his dedication, so they decided to make an exception and offered him a promotion. When the girl from the inspection team insists that only Jong can be the perpetrator, as he was the only one present at the scene, the chief seems to think of Jong as a good friend, so he believes that Jong could not do something like that. Also, the people who reported also made claims that the one who caused them to lose their lives is called the Kiss of Death. The chief then asked Jong about the perpetrator and the victims, but it was already too late as they have already been killed. The chief and his people were surprised to hear the news, and he states that they have to capture the culprit. But as Jong has finished him already, they couldn't believe him, since Kiss of Death claims to be an S-rank talent who had been wandering around the magic domain for many years. Jong then shows them his kill list, which finally clears their doubt, and it was unbelievable for them as he is only a beginner now. The chief praised Jong for his skills and thanked him for eliminating a threat to society. When Jong was finally about to leave, the chief reveals that Kiss of Death was a member of an illegal organization named Dawn. They seemed to be popular for their kidnappings, robberies, and assassinations, as the Magic Domain Administration team had been investigating the matter regarding them for a while. But no progress was made from the administrator side, and as Jong has vanquished one of their members, the chief advises him to be careful, as he can become their target. He even suggested Jong become one of his members, but Jong respectfully declines the offer, saying that there is no need, and entered the 4th floor entrance. But the chief inspector seems dedicated, as he wants to make him one of them someday. Jong reaches the 4th floor and sees people trapped by the Magic Domain Administration team, so people were protesting and complaining about it. Jong was confused because the issue is again related to the Magic Domain Administration team, and people were talking about the Death Zone on the 4th floor. Jong remembers that he got the Death Zone invitation from the 2nd floor guy in his inventory, but isn't sure if it has something to do with this. One of the Magic Domain Administration officers explains that the Death Zone is actually a separate dimension on which they still haven't managed to conclude any meaningful research. All they know is that it can appear randomly in any of the Magic Domain floors, and when it happens, the difficulty of that floor will be equivalent to that of the 10th floor. But the crowd still wasn't trusting the inspectors and wanted to see it themselves. Finally, the inspector agreed to let them in, but only if they agree with the condition that they will have to bear the consequences themselves.